Okay, so number two of Mystery and Materialism, featuring my brother Owen. How you doing, Owen?
Hello. Doing good. Doing good.
Good. This is the second chat, the follow-up chat from our first. Hoping to make it at least a three-part series. Um, Veering towards acid communism in the next chat, perhaps. But for now, we're going to pick up the conversation where we left it off last time. Do you wanna sum it up from your perspective?
Yeah. So I think basically what we got out of the first chat was I wanted to not convince you, but make a case for spirituality being uh, important, something that people kind of require. I fully understand that it's really inaccessible at this point in time from both sides, whether it's New Age or traditional religions. It's just it's very uncool. I just I see loads of problems with each version of it, and I'm trying to figure out a way to reframe it, repackage it. I guess I think you could be helpful in that. I don't think I've got this super new way to spread spirituality or anything, but I have a way that it works for me, and I went a bit too far. Well, some could say I went a bit too far down the spiritual highway at one point in time. I've come um, back up on a rational engine, sort of pulled the notions out of myself, um, and yeah, that was it. I we talked for ages last time, and I think we were really careful and tiptoed around a lot of things, but I think I got it in the end, basically just in saying that, like, you know, we're all gonna die, and we all know that, but we kind of have to ignore that, and that's kind of the strongest example of mystery that is staring us in the face, whether we're willing to look at it or not. There's other examples like the concept of infinity.
Mhm.
Like that.
Did you
That's
mention that last week? Last week,
no,
fucking months ago. So that's interesting because I put that down as a thought to bring up.
yeah, yeah. Infinity is an interesting one. I was reading different definitions of infinity and how they came to be and came to light originally, and I was kind of surprised to find that even still today, the concept of infinity is like denied or challenged, and I don't really understand that. Like it seems to be in some.
Like by flat earthers.
No, by like scientists. Some scientists consider the concept of infinity to be purely as easy way out.
Standing, okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, surely I don't understand how someone like there's no highest number, right? There's no highest number. Do people expect there to be an edge of space? Like I don't see how there could be an edge of space. But I also, yeah, I get it. We don't sort of have the capacity to understand it. It breaks our brain, basically. And I used to hate even looking at the stars when I was a teenager. It just made me feel extremely frustrated. Um, but I love that shit now.
Yeah. It's a feast for thought. Um, the the my angle, I think, last time was to well, I suppose the overarching aim for both of us as well, in terms of like the framework for discussing that stuff, mystery, um, was to try to dispel a lot of existing antagonisms between spiritualism or spiritualists and materialists, which inherently exist with like New-Ageism and traditional religions and secular socialism. Um, but there's a lot. I think I've always felt that there's a lot in spirituality in an open sense, without needing to sort of come down on any definition. Um, there's a lot of scope for, there's a lot of need for people to acknowledge the need for it. And like I said, without that human impulse to fly a flag and to demarcate and to put in infrastructures of power and imposition, and which is sort of what religion has, or religion as the traditionally strongest manifestation of spirituality in our history, or at least our sort of recent enough history.
Yeah.
So I guess bridging, allowing the not allowing, but like facilitating the thrust of speaking about mystery and what you termed last time as post-theistic spiritualism, facilitating that chat alongside a parallel sort of materialist understanding of the human condition in order to sort of break free from those traditional shackles that people find themselves in at loggerheads with these two things, and in so doing to sort of find like a way forward for people who are interested in those two positions that might not have sort of come to any conclusions, because what sort of conclusion is worth anything without actual dialogue between people, and to help people with sort of unqualified interest in one or the other or both topics to sort of find each other and find a way forward on these things, a progressive way forward, a way forward that helps both ends meet their sort of their aspirations for a better future and a better society.
And that you just reminded me of how we missed the other meaning of the word materialism last time.
Oh yeah.
The philosophical sense, just when people place more importance on material reality, right? That's it, isn't it? Before I get this wrong again, before we brain fart through it again. You have the Marxist materialist, right?
Yeah.
And then there was materialists that we brought up as the other, which was people who were concerned with like
things,
filling their life with things.
Yeah.
But then what I actually meant was people that put so much emphasis on on the material reality and sort of ignore the rest or dismiss the rest.
Fuck. Okay. Yeah. That clicks. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's definitely sort of blurred lines between between that and the other two.
Yeah.
For sure. I heard someone make a really good distinction with a lot of communists make a very sort of emphasized materialist position and ignoring all those other things, including sort of discourse and ideology and rhetoric, and it was termed, I think this comes from Mao, it was termed mechanical materialism, whereas actually Marx and Engels dealt with dialectical materialism, which is, the relationship between material and everything else, or how the mutual influential development occurs, to sort of how it's not just the material reality isn't this prime thing, because things are influencing it all the time.
Right. So Marxist materialism almost marries the two, whereas in the philosophical sense they're sort of opposed to each other, like the spiritual and the material. And I don't mean holy. I don't mean the holy.
Yeah.
So when we finished the last one, you sort of said, "Hit me with it then. What have you got? What way do you want to explain this?" And so it's basically an analogy that I
hold on, just to frame that, to prime it, because I'd spent the entire time interpreting spiritualism in terms of what you termed as human essence, essential living, and this is definitely something we're going to come back to, but eventually in the chat coming towards the end of it, well, you hit me with the term which I wanted the explanation for, which you're about to give, which was rather than the human spirit, this beyond ourselves mystery. That I thought was a really fascinating way of putting it. So hit me with that then.
Okay, yeah. You made me wish I'd rewatched ours before coming into it. Just there, I was like, "What did I say? Did I?" Essential living. Before I do essential living, it's more that it's an essential part of living. Essential living sounds like some kind of
Program.
yeah,
Here at Essential Living, we're
like
going to
a
teach you how to.
like a purity type thing. That's not what I meant. Anyway, mystery. Yeah. Yeah. This nice way I found of sort of explaining it, and uh, a way of explaining a concept of God that doesn't. Like, I can't even say spirituality or God without having a cringe inside me, if you know what I mean. Like, there needs to be new words, but I'm not going to be the one to make them up. I've got this new word. Here's a new name for it. You know how that comes off. But
it comes through this discussion again. New words.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Leave your new names in the comments. But yeah, so you take water as an example, basically. Maybe it has been expressed this way before, but if it has, I haven't heard it. But you've got like the three elements of or the three forms that water can take. So you've got ice, steam, and water, or maybe I could say H2O to begin with. The three forms that H2O take. So so like ice, you could take ice as our physical reality, like it's hard to touch, it has edges, it has weight in that way, it holds its form, so you could think of that being one way that we perceive this reality, is the ice form. Then you got water. Well, a better way of saying it is ice is your body, okay?
Okay.
And then water is your thoughts. You've got like a stream of water, we pool our thoughts together, you know what I mean?
Okay.
The way it's always running, it's constantly, there's a constant stream of thoughts, constant dialogue. And then steam being basically what we don't see. It's like it's mist, it's our emotions, it's what we experience, it's our memories. It's like when two people come together, like even me and you through the internet now, where our steam, our energy is coming together, you know what I mean? So when you when you're looking at a dead body in a casket, you know what I mean, you can clearly see that is life, or human life, only in its ice form. Like, it literally looks like ice. The water, the stream of thoughts is gone. The steam, that which animates it, like that electricity is a good way of describing the steam, you know what I mean? And yeah, that's so looking at a dead body like that, it is literally just like ice, you know what I mean? That's a human with no steam and no water.
Yeah.
So seeing it in this way of three, it's like you can take, there's so many examples you can take, like
is it like that in life we're just so accustomed to all three of them being sort of just constantly filling our entire experience, and then all of a sudden you're hit with moments where one or two of them are missing?
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. You can sort of at different parts in a person's life, they can run away with one, and it's sort of striking a balance of the three. A general balance seems to lead to most success. Like when it comes to creativity or performance, there's always this worry of overthinking things. It's like letting water take too much, and then you're out of balance. Or if you have someone who is so academically advanced that it makes them very hard to be accessible with other people. And similar, if someone's overly focused on the body, on ice, it's like you get a strange vibe off them. You're like, where's the rest of your life, you know what I mean? You just focus on your body. It's just a way of describing mind, body and spirit.
Yeah.
And then you could look at H2O itself, like what those components are within, as being God. Do you know what I mean? Like all that which these components and what other components that have nothing to do with humans, all of that is what God is. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Um, not intuitively. Like that, it's so like so if a body is the solid, the ice, their mind being the fluid, the water, and the 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 steam being the sort of the energy, the animation. I assume like the personality as well, the things that aren't sort of tangible and probably
Yeah.
um
Immeasurable for the most
yeah
part.
the I suppose the that's all of them. So what's the step from that being all of them to all of them being God, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. Well, I thought this might have come out better. It's definitely come out better in the past. So,
Or
like,
what's the whole? What am I missing there for the whole?
well, the element H2O,
Okay,
right?
yeah,
Does that make sense? The element H2O. H2O takes these three different forms. Now, you can have H2O and all the other elements, and all the other elements we don't even recognize as being God.
okay, hang on. So H2O is the thing that, well, it constitutes any given state of those three states. It's all still H2O, but like there's nothing sort of there's nothing else that we sort of or there's not it's not very often that we have a word or a term that can be so transformable, I guess. Is that it? So like so H2O itself then becomes totally distinct even though it's exactly what those three things are. Is that what you mean? It's that like almost it cuts away from the thing that it is in our language and our perception.
Um, I guess it's just that which encompasses all. It's that which these forms exist within. Does that make sense?
I think a bit more sense to me now. I think.
So the steam or the mist, right? That seems most intimately connected to whatever this state of spirit is. Obviously, for
Mm-hmm.
obvious reasons. Um, like when I meditate, I'm basically trying to align those three elements. So for my body, I'm feeling the breath enter and leave my body. You might have your hands on your body, feeling it go out. You're focusing the mind centrally. That's the only activity. You're letting it think, but you're reminding it that you're trying to connect these three elements. You're just trying to recognize that those three elements are what make you up, or those three forms, and you're trying to put them in harmony. So then, of course, the breathing, the heartbeat, the electricity is comes to the foreground as you're silencing your mind. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it almost feels like you're moving further out into space,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start thinking again. And I'm thinking about things to do with my day and with my life and with the people I know, and then I'll remember, oh, I'm trying to align these three elements. I'm trying to put them in harmony. You could see them as three strings on a guitar, you know, and you're just trying to tune them until you're getting a nice harmony.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll remember that again, and I'll focus on my breathing. It might only last 1 or 2 minutes, but in that 1 or 2 minutes, it's like I've moved further away into
Yeah.
space. And it's like the further away into space I get, uh, the further away from the concept of myself I
Yeah.
get. Like Eoin is dissolving, you know what I mean? And each time the dialogue or the thought process come back in, they're getting closer to what a religion person could say is getting closer to God or whatever. I hear people, you know, when people say, "Oh, God spoke to me and He told me whatever," fill in the blank. I like, I, I, I feel like that's what's happening
Yeah.
there. You know what I mean?
So obviously, in your the initial statement, the sort of like it's almost like a syntactic error in saying the word God trips someone who's never thought about this up. So obviously that was the issue that I was having. So it's almost like what you're saying is like in holistically considering all those three elements, what the H2O you were alluding to was like you're in considerate in well probably not fitting, but like consciously considering and balancing these three. I mean, you lose the term consciousness comes sort of gets a bit eroded there, but in the first instance, at least, in trying as yourself to balance those three things, you are moving away from yourself, like in inverted commas, towards then what, and
Yeah.
that's sort of what you're alluding to.
Well, I was using meditation as an example there, but you could use flow state in creativity or many other worthwhile tasks like the act of sex between two people. You know, like that's a good one to use. Like most adults can relate to how you know, overthinking can destroy the process, or you know, there's definitely a fine balance of the energy between the two people, a stilling of the mind, or a very a minimal use of dialogue, and um, bodily awareness and activity that comes into play. And I think most adults could recognize when they have and haven't been in harmony in those situations. But then creative flow as well, performing live music, anything like that. You know, the concept of time goes out the window the same way it does when you're meditating.
Yep.
Or exercising is another one. You know, if you're trying to exercise in a gym or running, and you've got a lot of inner dialogue, and like your thoughts are taking over, but you actually feel that in your body. You know, it's slowing you down. It's like there's lead. If you can manage to clear it, you can manage to put yourself in harmony. It's it all just runs smoother. And again, time goes out the window.
It's the it's the sort of the like frontal lobe sort of cognitive conscious focus that sort of is, I guess, it like it last time you mentioned like objective and subjective, so it's not, I assume it's not something that you want to sort of objectify as a sort of a creed or anything, but like your subjective explanation of this, your sort of your personal framework is that like it's okay. So obviously when you fall asleep you're unconscious. So it's not you're not talking about moving from being awake to falling asleep, but you're moving from like the like that, like I said a minute ago, like the frontal lobe sort of cognitive analytic consciousness of like when you're focusing there. I don't know which one exactly you might be, how out of balance that is in terms of the three things, but I guess any one of them. um but what happens, I suppose what you're suggesting is that once they are sort of balanced, that sort of predominant consciousness is what dissolves. When you said like Owen is dissolving, it's not, you're not falling asleep, you're the creative flow, making love, um meditating, and getting to a different state of that consciousness.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I guess it's like in harmonizing them, you're sort of allowing yourself to fall into the steam state, or the spirit, the state of spirit.
And so, okay, so saying that sounds like then you're just replacing one predominance with another. But what you're suggesting is, for whatever reason,
Sorry, you're breaking
historically,
up.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh,
Can hear you now.
I hope there's no lag. But what I was saying there was like, it sounds like as you're saying that you're like you're making the steam then like predominant. But I suppose what you're suggesting is historically we've come to a point where that's sort of fallen away, and
That's
it's
exactly
bringing that
that's
sort of back
exactly what
in.
I was about to say. Um, yeah. In regards to our previous conversation, I guess that's what I was getting to, is that I feel like we're doing ourselves a disservice, or we're making life more difficult for ourselves by ignoring this steam element. And it's like that which animates, or the energy. But energy is already a broken word at this point. You know, it's this. I think energy in the room was
Yeah, yeah.
like spirit, but like there's ways people use spirit that's okay. You know, and they say like a football match or something. You know, the spirit,
Yeah.
the team spirit or whatever. There is ways we use spirit, and it really does mean the same thing. It's just managed to unshackle itself from religious connotations.
Yeah, that, I mean, that would definitely. I mean, like the examples you've used already, I can certainly speak to. But like even the difference between sitting down and standing up in a football match is huge. Like the way that you can lose yourself when you're standing up in a crowd that's all screaming, and like anything can happen. Like that feeling
Yeah.
that anything can happen. It's just absolutely insane. Like I've ended up 3 rows back and 5 seats along in those situations, you know, and not knowing how.
Yeah, yeah. It's the
Yeah,
same with live music, the difference between watching a band sitting or standing in a crowd.
yeah,
But
and yeah,
that's
my experience of being in live music a lot of the time was like I was super conscious, and it was just like I would always be looking around, going like, there's something missing here.
mm,
But there then were times where it was just that thing happened, and it
yeah.
was just sublime. Um, what interface that with mystery? So I assume like there's almost not a method or a suggestion, but like in recognizing at the very least that like we're out of whack, we tend to be as a whole almost out of whack with incorporating that spirit element of the triad, um, and to do so, um, I'm guessing, because I don't think you've said it yet, I'm guessing like where that really sort of becomes something we want to be doing is to deal with mystery. Would that be correct at all?
Yeah, well, you could look at the last 100 years and how we've come to understand and accept the emotional field in humans, and how, you know, it was strongly disregarded not so long ago, particularly in men, and probably is a lot still today. But that's like so far along the path. It's like, okay, we've recognized the steam that much so far, but it's still the foot of the hill. So what I'm saying is, like, any situation that we come into, particularly difficult ones or challenging ones in our life, we can look at what is the steam of this situation. Like, I don't even like using the word steam. It's just still hanging
Yeah,
on
but
to this.
yeah, sorry, yeah, of course.
It's like a very simple way, or a very basic way of explaining those three elements and how they might work together. And then there is a bit of a weird thing in there where that steam or spirit um seems to encompass all three as well. It's most intimately connected to whatever God might be. So there is a weirdness there. It's never going to be a nice even pie chart. You know what I mean? We're dealing with something incredibly abstract that nobody has the capacity to talk about. Yet we've been talking about it since humans can talk, because it is that fundamental in our existence. I see a problem where we're not talking about it anymore because it's so abstract, and because it's been exploited and corrupted so many times, because it is so easily corruptible and exploitable.
Mm. I feel like okay, so it's not that there's a universal predominance, but I suppose what you're suggesting then is that there is an issue that humans face, and this is the sort of tool that we're ignoring that helps deal with it. And for whatever reason, then there's like there's a historic accumulation of reasons that this has been left to the wayside, except for the fact that obviously um, traditionally we've outsourced. I guess we've outsourced that tool
Yeah.
to the local priest or whatever, in
Yeah.
in the Christian experience, and I assume there's the same equivalents in other places. But yeah, that's obviously, particularly in the last couple of 100 years, taken a huge sort of smashing. Whatever use, whatever, like just in terms of function, that
Yeah.
that held, we're finding a deficit as that sort of falls away. And I think you brought that up last time as well, that like that actually, yeah, okay, so fine, there was a function to it, but actually looking sort of even a larger sort of view on it, it's a shame that it got to that stage. Uh,
Yeah.
that the reason you put was the Christian church put in the infrastructure to deal with death, with burial,
Yes.
and with
Yes.
mourning and
Yes.
stuff. Um, and so I guess then if it's correct to sort of to consider that as some sort of outsourcing, then an initial response to finding that deficit, say 50 years ago, was the sort of I guess people in the inverted commas West looking inverted commas eastwards for answers that were so wholly sort of ill-fitting with the given cultural history that it ended up, I suppose, becoming like and then quite quickly being sort of commodified in New Age spiritualism. Um, I wonder, because I don't know enough about it, and I've always just presumed, but being sort of faced with thinking about it, I wonder, is like the main criticism just that it's been commodified, or is there something sort of more hokey existing at its sort of root? Like I sort of alluded to that, like it's culturally ill-fitting or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember that amazing scene in forgetting Sarah Marshall, where you're one, I can't remember her name, is to the Russell Brand character, like you've got a Hindu and a Buddhist and possibly a third like tattoo on you, and all of those are highly incompatible.
Yeah.
Who the fuck knows that? I bet you there's fucking loads of people that like incorporate all those bits in, and it's like, no, I feel totally zen, and actually they're probably just way off. And somehow they're what's happening is that they're consuming a peace of mind in as they're just being sort of wholesale exploited and undermined from the life outside of that spirit thing.
Yeah.
But that's almost like spirituality. So to sort of make sense of this in this context, that's like, so we've had the functional outsourced spirituality historically, that's obviously fallen away for very many good reasons. The reaction leading to I suppose a cynical adoption of a spiritualism, to a personalized spiritualism adapted to probably the deficit in human essence, the way I was talking about it before, or the human spirit, the fact that like we're not living together and we're not, basically the social relations corrupted by capitalism, and
Yeah.
capitalists adopting it to help us deal with that, to cope and to remain productive and non-revolutionary. And then I suppose this post theistic suggestion is to repersonalize and find a personal sense of spirituality that makes up for the deficit, and that actually returns, I suppose, to the issues outside of the capitalist issues and that cynical turn, to deal with things like the mystery of death and the mystery of infinity. And I suppose if that all fits with what you're suggesting, why what is it about that mystery? And I think you were touching on it just last week, so I think if you were able to continue, like why is that a thing we need to worry about?
Well, I think in the last chat I highlighted existential crisis. You know what I mean? Like it's looming, and then there is watching our loved ones die throughout our life. You know what I mean? And dealing with tragedy, and dealing with challenges ourselves. I guess for me anyway, in recognizing this sort of the spiritual element to my existence, it's helped me recognize a poetry in things, you could say. So like a subtext or something. Um, like a way maybe you could look at that as generally when we look back at things that have seemed cataclysmic in our life, and we look back at them, we generally see a sort of a lesson that was learned, or a subtext to that. It was something that crushed me at the time, but this much time has passed, and I'm almost glad it happened. And I know there's awful things that happen to people that you can't say that for, but generally, as we're going through life and we're getting hit with challenges like that, some amount of time passes and we look at them and go, I wouldn't change it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, So I guess for me anyway, recognizing that, recognizing those while I'm in them, like seeing a poetic subtext to things that are occurring to me or people around me has been really helpful.
Yeah.
And I don't think, like, I really don't think I'd have that if I hadn't um opened up spiritually when
Yeah.
I did. You know what I mean? Um, I also think, in regards to when we're talking about more superficial, like in vogue versions of spirituality and whatnot, that it's kind of important to recognize that there's there's spiritual maturity that people are progressing through. You know what I mean? And this is something that I see when people critique different people for expressing their spirituality. I feel like they're kind of they're like judging children for being silly or something. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
that's fair.
When children are supposed to be silly. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
So I can look back at my path through spirituality, and at first my mind was blown. You know what I mean? And I was running around like, wow, like this wasn't here before. I was a hardcore atheist. You know what I mean? And I was comfortable with that. And I haven't arrived at this position now because I got afraid. It wasn't I got older and I was like, oh God, I actually am going to die
Yeah,
someday.
yeah.
You know, I knew I was going to die someday, and I was fine with that because, like, lights go off. I'm not going to worry about it then. You know what I mean? It's fine. But yeah, it was a big shock to me that another dimension opened up inside me. You know, it's similar to I remember when I was like probably 12 or 13, I realized that the movies I'm watching are actually art that someone actually made, that lots of thought and emotion and money went into. And I all of a sudden found this whole new appreciation that wasn't there before. Before that, it was just, I'm watching movies.
Yeah, yeah,
Movies
yeah.
are things that have been here since I was born and I like them. Then it was
Taking
like,
shit for
oh my
granted.
God, I really like movies now because I realize it. And that's kind of what happened with spirituality and me, and how I look at life and how I appreciate life, even when things are going real shitty. And I guess that's another reason why I would like to bring a version of it that isn't completely shat on by everything that's happened before to
Yeah.
people. One that doesn't really involve gurus or, like I said in the last one, a sort of pushing of subjective experience as if it's
Objective truth, yeah.
objective truth. And yeah, am I making a good case for it yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
of
felt
course,
like
why not?
I was floundering a little bit at first. It just gets yeah, the old record button staring at me there.
I mean, yeah, I find it hard to imagine. It would be really super interesting if there was objections to any of this, for people to fucking lay them in the comments or whatever, and to engage in the conversation, because I mean, so I wouldn't have outright objections. So I think my thing, stemming from my position from the last chat, is that, like, to my mind, I suppose, what level of it was I arguing last time? Basically, the idea that capitalism determines fundamentally social relations, and at any in any class, um, they're they're not great. um,
Mm.
you're either sort of there's an enormous dearth of resources for the working class to be able to sort of allow for social relations among them um, to be satisfying. I mean, there's plenty of other cons to it, but just in terms of how one feels about themselves. Um, and for the capitalist class, they see people only in terms of the profit margin because they're in such intense competition. Um,
Mm.
so no one gets that human to human feeling, experience, interface, whatever. Like, we just capitalism is kicking the shit out of how we're able to relate to one another.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and for me, I suppose my take last time on spirituality was that being like a communist or being an anti-capitalist is to sort of from a spiritualistic point of view is to tackle that and to alter social relations. And I suppose when you brought up mystery, sort of revealing the limits of that take, being that take on spiritualism being that like okay, sure, once we're in a position where social relations can be really fruitful and healthy and full on and beautiful experiences, there's still that mystery remains in the infinity and death, and being those two examples that we've brought together so far. But I suppose what I feel or felt afterwards was that like my take on it beyond that was always um to imagine looking back on life from a deathbed, like to assess like a decision in terms of from the perspective of my deathbed sort of
Yeah.
thing. And from that point of view, then like decision making is made based on meaning, and again it's meaning through human socialization. And so like I still can't get beyond that. So the reason I came to thinking about it infinity when thinking about this topic, because we didn't bring it up last time, was that yeah, so there's definitely been moments in my life where that frustration, sitting on a beach looking at the stars going, you get to the end of it, but then there's more of it. and that can, depending on what you've done earlier in the night, can lead to anxiety. And yeah,
Or
it's
not, or the opposite.
well, like I said, depending on what you've been doing.
Yeah.
um there's there's been moments like that, but by and large, you know, the infinite can stay there, and as long as I'm sort of as long as I'm doing my best on the daily to sort of work, I mean, do one's best to work outside capitalism and try to bolster those human social relations and bring meaning to life, and think ahead in terms of how you're going to feel about yourself on your deathbed and stuff like that. That I feel like that's a good guide, a good direction in terms of like nourishing the soul
Yeah. Well,
from.
I would see that taking that perspective, or even remembering to take that perspective, as a very spiritual emotion. You know what I mean? Like, why is that effective? Someone could be on their deathbed and look at it and go, well, I don't give a shit, I'm going to be dead in a minute. You know what I mean? But it's not. Why is it not?
Well,
You know what I mean?
I think maybe so maybe the particular part of it then, if there is a particular part of it, is that the answer that I would come to is the human social relations, and that's where the meaning's found, and that's where the soul is nurtured and stuff like that. So because I was talking like that thread last time, and it was met with, no, well, actually, perhaps there's a bit more to it. I'm sort of thinking now, is that just like, is that sort of a maybe not erroneous, but at least lucky happenstance that's the sufficient sort of thing that engaging in the steam, that's all I need to be sort of attenuating for, and it might not be the case for everyone. Or is there still something to your mind that, well, no, like, okay, so maybe you've felt the frustrations of the infinite universe sometimes, but you're lucky to sort of leave it for the most time, and you don't need to contemplate it. But actually, this that doesn't discount the fact that mystery can still sort of kick you in the ass at some stage. Does that question make sense?
It does. It does. Yeah, yeah, it does. So, is that enough to get you by, basically?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I mean, it's good, and like I said, I would see that as a spiritual emotion. Like, I maybe it's enough to get someone by.
Do you know? I
I,
think
I
Go on, sorry.
What? No, you go on.
I think, if if there was, if I lived in that sort of that that um communist working, communalized, socialized arrangement that I sort of idealized, to be fair, in the last one, because it's hypothetical, um, in facing death and in facing the infinite and in facing sort of mystery and things that are just beyond ourselves, I feel like if I was, if we were all in a circle together and we were all, that if I had everyone there, I would have the strength to go, I don't give a shit, fuck you. Do what you fucking want. Like, even in the hypothetical situation that mystery and that infinite was an actual god, and he was a fucking angry, fucking Old Testament god.
Yeah.
And I remember saying this to Ollie way back, like 10 years ago, in the early discussions. It was like, I don't. And he had all these laws, and I was doing none of those laws. As long as I had my boys and my girls having my back, like, I'd be like, fuck you, I don't care. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I don't think God is all loving. I don't think. I think whatever you were doing, whenever you were doing it, was what you were supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? That was what was being experienced, and I I I I think it's again talking about extreme, abstract, and just the way I understand it subjectively. Um, God is both good and bad. It's everything. It's all
Hey,
the whole
sure.
range of the frequency band. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It appears to be for some reason more loving than not, because survival is surviving, because nurture is nurturing. I think if it was leaning more towards hate or evil, everything would have been decimated a long time ago. You know what I mean? So that's the only way I can really understand it. But
But you still get your butt kicked sometimes. Which is the whole point, by mystery. So I suppose the reason I brought up Old Testament and laws there, not so much
yeah,
morality and good and evil, is that um, is that it that experience for Moses and the boys equates to the modern sort of equation that you're talking about with mystery. I like I think, if I'm getting it right, like that the whole chat sort of predicated on the idea that because we're not attenuating to this third perspective or of our um existential essence,
yeah.
we're we're sort of suffering in the contemplation of this
Well,
X factor.
can I go back to the emotional point I brought up earlier? That
Please.
in the last 100 years, we were completely unaware of our emotions. In the last 30, 40 years, there's been a lot of progress there. We recognize our emotions. We recognize how they make us physically ill. We recognize how our emotional state results in the things that happen to us and so on, the effect. And things, I mean, are a lot clearer for it. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't hold emotionality and spirituality as two separate things. As I said before, I'm kind of spirit being all that is like steam. It's like things that are there that we can see, we can talk about. They're very real. We can only measure them somewhat with like frequencies. You can heartbeats and sound. It's just all the things in our reality that we can't actually touch or see. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the energy we share, that which animates. It's like we've come that far in recognizing emotionality. There's so much further to go, and in the way that realization and awareness has made our lives that much better, I just see there being a lot more uh, betterness to come, basically, if we can find a way to re-articulate spirituality that isn't just full of nonsense.
I think I think that's been 50 minutes, but I think where that leaves and obviously fully open to sort of elaborating you want to elaborate on. But where that leaves to my mind, the conversation is what you just said, the sort of the appreciation of this untapped or underexplored dimension to our existential or holistically existential essence can continue improvements that we've sort of felt of late by exploring other dimensions or aspects to that is one solution to the human condition, the misery we often find ourselves in, whereas still to my mind, I feel focused on the social relations being that sort of, like if we're in a room and in this room we can see everything in the room, and in that room what we see is the human condition as we know it, and the misery we often find ourselves in. You were saying through this unknown door that into a room that we can't see is this dimension yet to be explored, and I'm sort of saying, well, through this, which is exactly what you just described, and I'm saying through this door, maybe they don't have to be two separate doors, but like I'm more talking about the unknowns in the room that we can't see, that as unexplored space. That's the reason with the illustration. That unexplored space being social relations outside of the capitalist condition. Maybe it is the exact same process. Or maybe I think I'd have to go back over it, and if I didn't, I suppose I am now. Maybe I'm arguing that the under capitalism exploring the door that you're talking about is hampered for so many reasons. I know we actually did go through a few of them, and you made like valid points, like, well, like people are forced to eat McDonald's to survive and read shit fiction to keep their mind alive. Why not sort of consume in this current situation the fast food spiritualism as well? And yet maybe through that acknowledgement and articulation, there's a big shout for like the process of sort of affording everyone the sense to move towards a personal subjective post-theism, coupled with the decoupling of production from consumption, or consumption from production.
Well, before we finish, can I just say that like I'm not exactly trying to push a recognition of God. It's more that I'm trying to push for a recognition of spirit.
Oh yeah. If I I don't know. I didn't mean
what you're
to.
talking about, the social relations, falls exactly into that. It's like you can relate it again to the spirit of the supporters at a football match, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like it shouldn't be our primary focus, but from the lag that it's been left behind, it needs to be brought right up there for us to be experiencing life in a, well, easier seems like a cheap word, but easier and more whole way. You know what I mean? I just think there's so many traditions that aren't corrupted by religions, like the traditions that you see throughout different cultures, throughout different times, like of offerings and stuff, that we really don't understand. And maybe it is more silly notions just from a different time. But it's a recognition of spirit.
Brilliant.
I'm going for.
Apologies if I alluded to that you any focus on God. Certainly didn't mean that. Yeah, I think that sort of puts us in good stead. I think if we go away and sort of explore a little bit about antagonism, try to make some sort of links, I think it could be sort of a very fruitful conversation for next time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna have some solid points to absolutely blow you out of the water, bro.
Man, you're owned.
Oh,
you're owned. Is it owned the word?
God's gonna come and smite you.
He's cringe.
He is cringe.
I'm base.
You're so based.
Joe Steele is God.
Who's Joe Steele?